The Leviathans are a very ancient species that created a super advanced artificial intelligence and gave it one mandate: preserve life at all cost. In related news, the Leviathans became the first victims of their own hubris when they failed to anticipate how literally that mandate would be taken. So let's talk about the Leviathan, their history, and now that the Reapers have been taken care of, how they might figure into Mass Effect 4 or 5 or whatever they're calling it.
Commencing dive in 3, 2, 1.
The Leviathan are both the creators and the first victims of the Reapers. The early history of the Leviathans is completely unknown, but it's speculated by Task Force Aurora that they evolved on an unknown planet that also produced at least one other sapient species. The word Leviathan originates from the Hebrew term Leviathan, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which refers to a large sea monster because the Leviathan are eventually discovered living at depth in an ocean, although there's no indication that they are only aquatic in nature. They are enormous creatures with several tentacle-like legs, 6 eyes, and they have a bony, plated-looking body. They communicate with each other via a little understood sort of telepathy system that's very advanced, and they can do so over vast distances. The Leviathans were at the apex of their power millions of years before the events of Mass Effect trilogy. The way they achieve that power is because they have a unique ability to mentally influence and control less intelligent and less developed, I should say less technologically developed, beings in the Mass Effect universe, and they use this ability to get and keep them in the Leviathan's thrall. In this way, they amassed compliant subjects all over the universe, and their power and influence was universe-wide. In the game world, no one has been able to decipher the Leviathan technology. From their mental capabilities to their artifacts that enhance their power and faster-than-light travel, the civilization's technology remains pretty much a total mystery. What we do know is that the species leveraged their thrall worlds to pursue scientific research. This apparently is how they gained space travel abilities in the first place. From what's known, they treated their subjects benevolently, although there's no question that the Leviathan consider themselves the apex race. They recognized that their subject worlds needed themselves to flourish in order to also best serve the needs of the Leviathan, and the Leviathan encouraged that. Over time, the Leviathan began to see that the races of their tribute worlds were themselves creating underlings in the form of synthetic beings designed to serve them in the less pleasant chores of running a society or in running life. However, the synthetic beings, designed to be highly intelligent and even sentient, also began to develop self-direction and the ability to exercise subjective wisdom, compassion, self-knowledge, and as they did, they naturally agitated for equality and freedom within their own worlds. This caused big problems with their creators, just as it would millions of years later with the Quarians and the Geth, and over again it led to strife and civil wars and disruptions that the Leviathans just could not ignore. So, in order to keep the tribute coming, the Leviathan devised a solution. They created a master intelligence and gave it one goal: preserve life at all costs. That's it. So the intelligence began to collect genetic data from the species across the galaxy using agents it controlled through indoctrination in the same way the Leviathan did with their subjects' worlds. But the intelligence decided that the best way to preserve life and knowledge of advanced organic civilizations was to, quite literally, preserve it by harvesting and then maintaining it. So it turned on the Leviathans with devastating speed, using their own infrastructure and knowledge against them, not maliciously, simply a literal interpretation of the mandate given it. But why didn't the Leviathans just launch a surprise attack on the Reapers? The species does have superior telepathic abilities and many races under their thrall, but that's precisely what led to their downfall. The intelligence they created had access to every possible bit of information about every species, and it was able to swiftly disrupt that system, overpower and separate the Leviathan from their thrall worlds, and then, outnumbered and cut off, the Leviathan were forced to go into hiding to avoid becoming extinct themselves. Using the genetic data harvested from the dead Leviathan, the intelligence created the first of what we call Reapers, in the image of its own creator, and that Reaper became known as Harbinger. The few surviving Leviathans fled to the farthest parts of the galaxy, the most remote places, and in that way the species survived, though only barely, and they were able to procreate and continue to exist. From those remote places, the Leviathan exercised careful doctrination here and there, and were able to communicate and stay abreast of what the intelligence was doing with the Reapers, and more importantly, to erase the memory of themselves from the universe. They did not attempt to intervene. They simply waited and watched the cycle that the Reapers enacted to harvest worlds as they advanced and rose to the level of intelligence that the Star Child intelligence had determined was optimal for preservation. Leviathans were eventually found on the asteroid Mojave during the Reaper invasion in Mass Effect 3 because they had enthralled the staff of a mining station there. One of the vital things learned in discovering the Leviathan is that they have the ability to sever the link that the Reapers have between their legions of collector agents, and this makes gaining their assistance in the effort to stop the Reapers pretty important. 20 years before the events of the Leviathan DLC, the Batarians had discovered a Reaper quartz at Jatar. Since the Reaper threat at that time was basically just a rumor, the Batarians did not see a reason not to examine it, but as they continued to study the corpse, they themselves became indoctrinated. This ultimately led to the Batarians being among the very first of the Reaper's victims. Years later, Admiral Hackett would wonder, what could kill a Reaper? Dr. Bryson believed it was a Leviathan, and so Task Force Aurora began investigating. Nowadays, of course, it's considered canon by many fans that the Leviathan killed this Reaper. But what does all this mean for Mass Effect 4? Though Shepard meets an incredibly old member of the species, a couple 100,000 years is nothing to a species that lives for millennia. The one that Shepard meets states definitively that they are the offspring of the generation that created the Star Child AI. The Leviathans in hiding were able to procreate, which means that without the threat of the Reapers, could the Leviathans rebuild their numbers? If so, what does that mean for the rest of the species in the Milky Way galaxy? Over the years in hiding, the Leviathan developed artifacts that enhanced and amplified their ability to communicate and control other species. Proximity to an artifact gives the Leviathan complete control at will of those they have in their thrall. For instance, they use one such artifact to communicate with Shepard through Ann Bryson. The Leviathan also goes on to take down an entire Reaper with its mind. That has interesting implications for future games. If you complete the Leviathan DLC before beating the final game, the Leviathans can use their telepathy to uplift a whole collector group, and that group can then be used to fight the Reapers in the battle for Earth. Without the threat of the Reapers, it's possible that the Leviathans may pose a threat again. Leviathans, now knowing that the Star Child and the Reapers had been neutralized, could possibly rise up. Granted, the Leviathan only pose a true threat in the Destroy ending choice, but it appears that the Destroy ending has been made canon, with the extended ending to Mass Effect 3 having been made canon already. The Leviathan in Mass Effect 3's DLC fills in some of the trilogy's mysteries, such as the true origins of the Reapers and the truth of the Catalyst. However, many truths of the ancient galaxy are not yet answered. The fate of the Leviathans, the reality of their civilization, the true extent of their motivations, and the implication of their potential behavior now that the threat of the Reapers is gone, these are still mysteries. It is possible that the Leviathan are the villain of the next game, but I think that would come off as a bit derivative. The Reapers are actually the derivative ones, considering the Leviathan came first, but we've seen that villain already, and I think it might be too similar to the Leviathan. I don't know what the Leviathan could bring to the table that's really new enough to be compelling. So, although the Leviathan are interesting, and I hope they do play a part in the next game, I don't see them as the villain, at least not the main one. The Leviathan could help advance civilization and technology, bring some new and interesting capabilities to the Alliance, and gameplay elements to the game, capabilities that might be necessary to fight a new threat of Mass Effect 4, which I think will come from somewhere outside the universe and threaten to collapse our entire galaxy. In that way, they could also tie it into Andromeda as well. What do you think? Do you think the Leviathan will rise up and become the villain of Mass Effect 4? Do you have another theory? Let me know in the comments, and in the meantime, thanks for watching this video and thanks for supporting my channel. I will see you very soon, and cheers.